Hello, and welcome to this moonlit night, or at least it was until these clouds came just on time to obscure it, in the Mithranor public area. Got a bit of a starry sky going on there, and of course the wild magic areas, which are prevalent in this area. We were talking the other day, one of the other bear party and I, about the Mythdrana expansion in general, things we liked, things we liked less. Was it a success, broadly speaking? And I think that depends upon your definition of success, and that might be a topic for a different recording. But this time around, on that theme, I just wondered if I could talk for a few minutes on just on that in itself in the game. What is success for us as players? How would you define success? And I was thinking, I made myself a little list here. I think when you're new to a game, we set ourselves little goals, perhaps, don't we? Either knowingly, or they're just there in the background. The game encourages you to have certain long-term goals, like by giving a little reward for something like completionist, +2 on all stats and skills. So it's kind of throwing a carrot out there for you, saying, "Oh, look, come and try all the different classes, and you get rewarded with this." So there's that's one thing that's out there. But on a smaller scale, then I think I've made a little list. I'm going to go through, see what you think to all these, and then maybe chime in with how you would measure success or otherwise for yourselves. So I've got for a newer player, the first TR is quite a big deal. I mean, some people go through the game and they don't they choose never to bother with the TR system, which I can totally understand. That too is a subject for another discussion, but the long and short of it is that to me at least, it's an unnecessarily long and painful system, messing about with all the TR cache and all that kind of thing, and I should think that would be quite off-putting to plenty of folk. So the strategy of just building, whatever character you want to try, taking it to the cap, gearing it properly, and playing it there, leaving it there, I think that's totally viable. More so now than ever, because they've given those extra 8 points, haven't they, on the epic destinies for the lower epic lived characters, to get them into the sort of 70s area, perhaps, for points you can spend, which is more than enough to get some good things going in 2, maybe even 3 trees. So there's never been a better time to have several characters in the game, in my opinion. I myself play 3, as you might have seen, and although one is kind of classed as the main one, the other 2 are doing pretty well in terms of epic past lives now as well. So it can be done. I certainly don't spend truckloads of time on the game, at least not by my standards. So it's totally doable. If that's, I mean, the advantage that has as well, first of all, you always have somebody at the cap to join in with friends and things, and secondly, different play styles. I have a caster, a ranged, and although it's not a melee per se, the warlock, it's a tank, so it's a caster in name only, I would say. So yeah, the first TR, that's like a milestone, and then you get into the next time around, and all of a sudden you can open things on hard, and that feels like a nice accomplishment. I can totally remember that with my characters. And then the next one, when you can open on elite, you think, yes, I've made it here. All that assuming, of course, that you're not VIP, because VIPs can open immediately on on Elite or Reaper. But that was my kind of rite of passage, so that did feel like a success and accomplishment. Um, Learning a new class, definitely. I mean, I was as much guilty of this as anybody else. I started out with the Warlock, which I would recommend to anybody just to get your feet wet as a caster, because it's not really a caster per se. You have so few spells to choose from, especially leveling. One person in the forums put it very well: just hold down left mouse button and YOLO blast your way to victory, which is as good a description as any. And later on, when you start getting a few more spells and the epic stuff added, you can start spreading your wings a little bit, and maybe having a few more spells once you've got the basics down will be less daunting. And from there you can move on into other casters. But for a long time, I just stayed with the Warlock class, and it was the Bear who is more of an adventuresome spirit than I am, for dipping her feet into new things and that kind of thing. She happened to run into somebody in a public room who was doing a caster druid, and mentioned it to me, suggested a few little things, and the long and the short of it is I was persuaded to try, and I never looked back. So until Purple came along and the Purple video series started, I didn't do another Warlock, which was probably as well because too much of a good thing maybe. I was doing racial lives as a Warlock, an Acid Warlock, and I did quite a few that way. As efficient as that was, the same thing all the time, I think makes things a little bit dull after a while. So perhaps variety as well, and dipping your feet into new things is a form of success. What else have I got written there? Crafting, yes. I think we can probably agree that there are probably too many crafting systems in the game, because it seems like they like to release maybe one with each new big content or expansion. And also a lot of them well, I'll say a lot, several of them, let's say, are unnecessarily complex, and the instructions are basically non-existent. I'm thinking maybe of the legendary green steel stuff. I mean, without help from the wiki there, I would have been completely lost with that. I just don't get why. I mean, it feels like an achievement. Genuinely, I'm not joking here. It feels like an achievement just to make an item out of that. I mean, first of all, you've got to run the shroud to get the gear. I mean, that in itself is an accomplishment. Running the shroud either on your own or with a small group, just to farm the materials, and then to get the piece of gear that you're looking for. In my case, it was the stacking cold crit damage. So I think you can get 35% extra crit damage in the element or spell type of your choice. In my case, it was cold for the druid. So it's a nice thing to have, but it took me quite a lot of work. The good news is it's front loaded that, so the majority of the work is for the last 5% in that thing I've just mentioned. So you could get reasonably easily the 30%, I think, if I remember correctly. Another one on the crafting side would be the Canith crafting and Slave Lord's crafting as well. I could probably lump those in together because they both, to my mind, are fillers for things that are lacking in your gear. Let's say, oh, we have a neck slot open here at the end game, and we need this and that and this to be on it because that's what we're missing off the gear at the moment. So you probably have a tough time finding your this and that and this on named gear. But if you're able to do the canith crafting or make up a slave lord's piece, then you can mix and match the things that you would like and possibly get them all on that same item. I Canith crafting is reasonably easy to level, especially on the bonus crafting weekends. There are guides scattered around the YouTube for that, and you can go from sort of 0 to maybe around the 300 area in maybe half an hour on one of those weekends using crafting potion and this kind of stuff. It's not expensive at all to get there. You just have to have a sufficient amount of Canith essences. We're talking tens of thousands of those, so likely as not, it's things you're going to have to collect over time, or possibly buy off the auction houses if you can. That's just a limiting factor. But once you have that, it's a real thing of convenience, in my opinion. Any sort of gaps in the gear, you can fill it in with that. And purple actually at the cap. I'm not saying he's amazingly geared by any means. He's not, but he has both one slave lord item and one Canith crafted trinket. Just to fill out these things, I made a list of things that I needed on the gear, and I was thinking, right, I'm missing this and this and that. How can I get these? And those two crafted items ended up being the solution. So yeah, coming to understand a crafting system and what that can do for you is a form of success in the game, in my opinion, certainly in my eyes. A last example of that would be the very easy to use Saltmarsh gear. To upgrade that from level 3 to 20 for your early forays into epic lives is super easy with the Saltmarsh hay, and you can come up with some really decent stuff, particularly in my opinion for the melee and the ranged people. So well worth trying that if you haven't dipped your feet into that yet. So that's the crafting. Acquiring certain past lives could be seen as a success or a priority, depending on your point of view. Some are very niche, shall we say, in terms of the uses they have. Others are useful to most any build. For example, the Paladin one giving 10 healing amp could be useful even to a Warforged, because likely as not you'll group with people who will be using positive healing on you rather than repair spells. I guess many people with their main characters will acquire over time quite a collection of these past lives, the racial, the heroic, epic. What I've done is I have plenty on my main one, and for the other two, for purple and red, purple being the tank warlock, red being the ranged class, I've tried to put on the lives that would benefit their specific builds and not bother too much about the other stuff. Purple ended up with completionist because he was doing the bulk of the video series, but it's not something I would have gone after otherwise. So yeah, past lives, definitely another way of people measuring success in the game. You see some people in the forums listing the plethora of past lives they have on the characters. So that's definitely one. Reaper mode, dipping your feet into there and acquiring your first Reaper points, and then at the other end of that, getting your Reaper wings, which I think are available at 75 Reaper points. That's like a rite of passage for some players. I mean, some never bother with the Reaper mode at all, and that's fine. That too is a choice in the game. Personally, I dipped my feet in it soon after it started, and I don't know if you remember, originally you had to be that exact level. You had to be the level of the quest, the base level, to be able to do it on Reaper, which caused a few issues, to say the least, with the planning of the runs through the quests. Like, for instance, well, many expansions, Fae is a good example. It has some level 5 and some level 6. So if you wanted to Reaper everything, you'd have to do the 5s first, then level up and do the 6s. Thankfully, that's been relaxed a little bit now. But yes, coming to know the well, when you first start, it's the four basic Reapers in Reaper 1 to 4, isn't it? Your Famine, Plague, Fear, and Carnage. How best to handle those, what to expect from them, like throwing a spell, um, absorb thing on like this when the Famine Reaper pops up is never a bad idea. Or keeping the Carnage Reaper out of melee range if you happen not to be a melee, that's also a good idea. Or going to cuddle the Fear Reaper when he pops up, or keeping at extreme range so you're out of the damage over time. Another good idea. So beginning to feel at home in there. And then at the cap, you've got the different levels of play, from having a character that's capable of going through and helping on low Reaper, to adventuring into the mid area, the 5 and 6, where the vengeance begins to pop up, learning how to handle him, killing him around a group of enemies that then get buffed and kill the party in short order is always a fun time. And then at the top end, you've of course got the Doom Reaper added to the equation, which is more challenging again because he can't, as he's classed as an end boss, handle the same way. You can't crowd control him or anything like that, so you just have to damage him down, which is another challenge for a group. So mastering the various elements that mode has to offer can be seen as a success by some. Putting together a build capable of holding its own in that mode, and or helping others through there. Okay, that's that. Learning a new quest, or discovering a new element or elements to ones that you didn't already, so the ones that you already knew. For example, recently I found a secret door with a chest behind it in one of the Druid's Deep quests. I think it was the one in Uth Lodge. I think you go down some steps, don't you? Is it before or after the wolves appear? And suddenly my spider sense went off, and there was a secret door there in a chest, and I'd never known it was there. So you never stop learning. But the new quest definitely feels like an accomplishment. Or let's say as well, an old quest that you had been avoiding, perhaps religiously. Say, oh, I'm not going in there, I can't do that. Something like the pit, perhaps. I'm pleased to say that with the wiki's help, I have been able to complete that one. Another one might be Spies in the House. Great XP, but that does take some learning. I needed a video guide on YouTube to help me through that, because there's a couple of sections that can be really fiddly. But once you have it down, I've done pretty well in that, so pleased with that. The only one that really did break me, other new quests that could go down as successes to learn could be the multi-instance ones, like Mirror, Beautiful Nightmares, and the Inferno in uh, the Orchard of the Macabre there, the Necro 4. All three of those felt like quite an accomplishment when I managed to get them down, and now guiding group mates through them is just a nice feeling to be able to do. The one that broke me, as I was starting to say, is the Crucible. I just can't manage that. The section with the valves at the start, messing about with hirelings and all that kind of thing. I just can't get it. Not in any reasonable time. I can't do it. So that's a pass from me, I'm afraid. But most of the others, I've found a way. So yeah, I think there's a degree of success, of satisfaction in there. What's this? Yeah, on a more social side, I've got integrating into a new group, or as they call them here, guild, and becoming more of a part of the community, which I guess could be helped now by the new DDO Discord that's come out. I'm not really one to throw myself into those kinds of things, but there is an excellent, on Orion anyway, there's an excellent raid Discord thing to help people put together the games and coordinate. And our bear party has a little Discord chat, which has been a really nice thing for me. I touched on it in the past. I tried and failed with a guild on Orion, not through any fault of the guild. It was it was me. I just struggled with any of the sort of social activities. Any time there was a raid put on, or a guild activity, just something as silly as, oh, just go and find this person in this wilderness and win a prize. And for some reason, I was all nervy about even getting involved in that. I don't know why, but ultimately I left and went my separate way because I was thinking, well, you're not being involved in any of this, and it kind of upset me, to see all these things and think, well, I'll just never join in. I don't know why. I don't know why it was so difficult, or why it still is now, like to jump into a public raid, even if I know there's a couple of friends going in. I just know that's a challenge to be met for me. So a success for me could be overcoming some of that in the future. And I already have to a degree. I mean, even being on here, putting my voice out here and sharing, opinions and experiences with some of you. That's been great. It's a lot more than I thought I would ever do. I played, as I've mentioned several times, for several years completely alone. So, with the place I'm in now with the game is much improved, I would say, and I'm much better for it. To, I think one nice thing about a little group or guild or whatever you choose to call it, to have some other folk to share the journey with, like whatever you might achieve or complete in the game. If you're on your own, then yeah, great. But if you can go to somebody else and say, "Oh, I did this today," or maybe, "Oh, do you fancy giving me a hand with this?" or "Can I help you with that?" That there's a feel good factor in there somewhere. I mean, we help each other out with filigrees and that kind of thing. And on the rare occasions when I can be persuaded to help with farming something, sometimes I'll join in, although I do detest farming. I think the biggest thing that's helped me to become a part of the wider DDO community on my own terms has been this little channel here, how it's grown. As I've mentioned in the past, it was only originally created for the Bear Party members to view back some of the games that we'd played if they wanted to. And then the thing sort of grew out of that. I did the first Purple Warlock series because I thought maybe I could help people along who hadn't tried the class, or who might might be looking for a few pointers, and it just kind of grew from there. From there, I tried plenty of other builds and classes that I'd never tried before, so that too has been great. I would define that as a success. Finding a play style that you enjoy, which kind of leads on from that. So if you, like me, um, go with one class and find that it works and just keep doing it over and over again, for sure, you're going to be learning plenty about that and optimizing it eventually. But the lion's share of the game is kind of passing you by because you haven't really given it a chance. So there could be some things out there that you would really enjoy, and you'll never know because you haven't dipped your feet in them. So I'd encourage folk to try and broaden their horizons a little bit. And at the very worst, you might think, "Oh, this is rubbish. I can't stand this. I'm going back to my default thing." Fair enough, but at least you have an understanding now when you meet those builds or classes in a group, and you kind of think, "Yeah, oh, it's one of those, and they'll be trying to do this, and maybe I can do that to help them," that kind of thing. Okay, that's that. Trying first raids is on the list. That's definitely a form of success. Particularly so in our little group because short running the raids, with like 3 to 5 people. I mean, yes, it's totally doable on the lower end ones, the Archons one, the what's it called, the Black Abbot one there, um, the Tempest Spine. But when you start getting to the higher level ones, the Dryad and the Demigod took us a bit of time because that does take a little bit of coordination. I mean, initially we didn't even know that the horses in the middle needed to be kept away from, is it Hawthorne, the character in the middle? So we learned, and I mean, trying was one thing, and completing. I remember the 4 or 5 of us sitting round the end chests at the end of that first successful Dryad raid, and the music was playing, and I just thought, yeah, this is great. So that was definitely a big success. Not least because my main character was looking for a very long time for the bottled rainstorm trinket to complete his druid build. So that was lovely the day I finally had enough raid runes from there to acquire that. Another, reaching workable DCs for spells or tactical feats for the level at which you play. I mean, this I've said something about this in the past. The often the difference between success or otherwise is an investment or lack of investment in the appropriate DC for the things you're trying to do. It can be as simple as pressing the button, nothing happens, everybody dies, and there's a bit of a feeling, or pressing the button, everything gets held, the group slaughters the opponents, and yay! And that might be the difference of 10 or 15 on your spell or tactic DC. So we're investing a little time into researching the kinds of things between augments and gear that you could put on the character to make the build reach the DC needed to be effective is I think that's a form of success. Especially if, like me, you've gone from being pretty useless, in terms of making spells land. My warlock at the start, the rare forays into the legendary, nothing would work. The mass hold was hopeless. I think he had a DC in the 70s maybe for the legendary stuff. Just wouldn't work at all. So to suddenly come back in there with the druid, the caster druid, having tried my best to put together some reasonable gear and find myself able to not only solo at a reasonable level, but begin to help others through some of the content too. It was great. That felt like a big success, like another a rite of passage, I suppose. And in doing that, you learn you learn the sort of components that make your build tick, the desirable things for the build. For example, on a caster DC build, you're looking at things like spell focus mastery, insightful version of the same, and then there's quality, profane, and sacred DC bonuses, all of which stack. I'm not going to go into all the, but for a melee or ranged, you'd be doing the same with deadly, seeker, that kind of thing, and then you'd want the tasty things like relentless fury and maybe Canith infusion or whatever it is on the family gloves, things giving extra damage. So just knowing the desirable things to look for on your build, and adding those into the gear, I think that's an element of success. I think that's about all I've got to say on the subject. Ultimately, um, if we end up playing, well, yeah, if we end up playing in a way that makes us happy, I think for me personally, the game was kind of an icebreaker to get to know in the background some really decent folk and building, meaningful connections with folk from all over the world. And that to me, uh, as a fairly introverted creature, was a huge success. So, yeah, maybe in the game, as in life, success is finding a way to play that makes us happy. I think that's about it. Thanks very much, as always, for looking or listening in this case. You look after yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Take care.